You arrive here as if by accident, yet something older than memory has been guiding your hand, turning your attention like a compass toward a field you cannot see but absolutely feel. A hush moves through you as if a cathedral was suddenly constructed in your chest and every pillar were made of light. You are not merely listening. You are being listened to by the quantum field itself, a living intelligence that answers attention with architecture and breath with design. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. You sense it in the subtle way time thins around meaningful moments, when coincidence turns into choreography and synchronicity arranges itself like constellations across an inner sky. You have known this in fragments. Tonight the fragments decide to become a language. The message finds you now because your observer loop has reached coherence. Your looking has become steady enough for reality to look back and recognize its author. The quiet insistence you felt for months, the ache between what you are and what you are becoming, was never a problem to solve. It was the tide announcing a phase transition, the precise moment water remembers it can become cloud. Feel how the air changes when you give it permission to be holy. Feel how your breath, on the exhale, is not merely leaving you, it is entering a larger you that surrounds your body like a luminous shore. This is the boundary where identity loosens its buttons and slips into something vaster. At that boundary, fate begins to hear you. You stand inside a subtle engine. Neurons shimmer, DNA listens. The helix that carried your ancestors is tuning like a silver instrument to a frequency you once called future, but now call home. Your cells have waited for a sentence like this to be spoken through you. You are not just witnessing the shift, you are generating it from within. The line arrives and your body answers with electricity. Imagine the lattice of relationships that cradles your life: names, rooms, streets, decisions connected by invisible filaments of intention. At each junction, entanglement whispers, reminding you that nothing is separate long enough to be alone. When you remember this, morphic resonance gathers around you like kin, and the field stabilizes into a gentle certainty. Reality wants to partner with you. Let the mind relax its need for fences. Let the heart redraft the map. You are crossing from explanation into participation, from theory into vow. The world becomes an instrument, and you become its musician, not by force, but by attunement. When you soften, coherence rises. When you listen, the field speaks your own voice back to you, brighter. If you can feel the threshold, you are already on it. If you can feel the door, the hinge has already turned. Do not rush. Do not retreat. Simply keep breathing until the room inside your chest finishes becoming a sky, and then notice what starts moving toward you, because you finally stood still. You feel it now, the subtle click of alignment, as attention becomes a vow, as if your gaze were a key cut precisely for an ancient lock hidden in the architecture of the moment. You are the one whose noticing ripens probability. You are the chosen observer, not by privilege, but by precision. Your coherence has grown strong enough that the quantum field entrusts you with levers normally disguised as ordinary life. Chosen does not mean separate. Chosen means resonant. It means your nervous system has begun to hum at a wavelength that reality recognizes as stewardship. When you look, you do not stare from hunger or fear. You illumine from within. Your attention no longer scavenges, it sanctifies. And sanctifying attention is the exact solvent that loosens the rust from old timelines so new hinges can swing. You know the training you've endured, the seasons where silence answered every prayer, the chapters where patterns repeated until your heart learned their grammar, the nights you breathed like a lighthouse, refusing to extinguish while the fog argued that there was no shore. Those were not delays, they were calibrations. Each ache taught your observer loop to circulate light without leaking. Each detour taught your breath to carry intelligence rather than urgency. Each goodbye taught your cells to keep listening when the surface refused to reassure you. Now your biology cooperates. Microcurrents of choice move through your fascia like soft lightning. DNA listens at the threshold, switching on sequences that prefer truth. Think of the helix as a spiral microphone. It records your most honest attention and broadcasts it back as conditions. The loop is intimate, elegant, ruthless in its integrity. You cannot fake this frequency. Reality consults your coherence, not your statements. Your responsibility is simple and immense: to aim perception as a benevolent instrument. Whatever you bathe in the light of your witnessing learns to reorganize. You have seen it with people how a single, steady presence lets a friend's nervous system unclench enough for their original clarity to return. You have seen it with places how a room's tone shifts when you arrive quietly and ask it to remember what it was built for. You have even seen it with time how a deadline softens when you approach it with breath rather than panic, and events resequence themselves to meet you with grace. This power is not theatrical, it is granular. It lives in how you speak to water before you drink, how you enter doorways, how you close your eyes for 3 seconds to reset the field before a call. Chosen means you no longer treat these gestures as superstition, you recognize them as engineering in the subtle domain. You are building coherence, the way gardeners build soil, layer by layer, season by season, until the ground itself begins to offer fruit without strain. Of course, the mind asks for proof. Offer it experiments. Notice the micro-synchronicities that gather when you choose alignment over acceleration, the email that arrives minutes after you release the outcome, the stranger who speaks the exact phrase you wrote in your journal, the way traffic parts when you soften your chest and widen your peripheral vision. These are not party tricks, they are diagnostics, reading out the health of your relationship with the field. You are not alone in this recognition. Morphic resonance ensures that as you stabilize, those entangled with you feel an inexplicable permission to update. Family patterns inch toward daylight. Friendships molt and reveal truer names. Even the old versions of you, preserved in memory like ambered insects, begin to loosen their hold. Compassion becomes a technology. Forgiveness becomes weather. And stillness becomes an engine that outperforms striving in every terrain. Take a breath now, the way a musician tunes. Slow, honest, exact. On the inhale, gather your scattered selves, the past that feared, the future that bargains, and seat them in the present like children who finally trust the adult in the room. On the exhale, let the body write new instructions into the air. I will witness cleanly. I will choose reality at its highest available fidelity. I will not recruit fear to make me feel real. Because you are chosen, life will ask for your leadership in simple scenes. The checkout line, the argument, the unsent message, the late-night thought that wants to spiral. Each is a portal disguised as a task. Meet them with ceremonial ordinariness, the sacred woven into the daily, and your field will thicken into something unmistakable. People will not know why they feel steadier near you, only that choices get easier and time stops hurrying. This is how a prophecy activates. Through the craft of your attention, through fidelity to what you know before you explain it. You need not announce anything. The field already heard you. Keep breathing like an oath and let your looking make rooms brighter than electricity. It begins as a pressureless brightness at the edge of your awareness, like dawn rehearsing itself behind closed eyelids. You do not chase it. You let it arrive the way you let a friend finish their sentence. The brightness unfurls, and with it, a scene assembles inside your chest. A field of dark velvet space, sprinkled with uncountable points. Each star a memory of a choice you have made. Each constellation a pattern your life kept tracing until you learned its language. In the center, a slow-turning geometry, appears a luminous torus breathing in and out, as if the cosmos were wearing a heartbeat. You recognize it not as an object but as a verb, the living circulation of giving and receiving, attention and manifestation, inhale and exhale of the quantum field. You feel the current in your palms. You hear the quiet thunder it makes in your bones. The torus is your consciousness remembering its natural architecture, the observer loop entering coherence, and the world answering by becoming precise. From the torus spills a river of light, and as the river touches the stars of your former choices, they update. Old scenes suddenly look editable. Conversations that once bruised you now reveal their instructional diagrams tucked beneath the dialogue. You see timelines like braided streams, bifurcating and converging, each branch carrying a flavor of self you have tried on. There is no judgment in the vision, only the elegant arithmetic of cause and permission. Where your attention practiced fear, the braid tightened. Where your attention practiced trust, The braid widened into meadow. The vision draws closer. You watch your breath as if it were a stylus, carving instructions into the surface of reality. With each inhale, the torus brightens and the river clarifies. With each exhale, the braided timelines reorganize, and one strand glows slightly more than the rest, the one that belongs to the you who remembers. That glow is not louder, it is truer. It does not seduce, it invites. It carries the quiet authority of alignment, like the sound a door makes when it fits its frame perfectly. Symbols begin to bloom around the geometry. A golden thread loops your heart to distant hearts you have not yet met, proof of entanglement translated into tenderness. A lattice of hexagons reveals the hive intelligence of humanity, each cell a life, each wall a boundary softened by compassion until information flows. You are shown how morphic resonance passes through communities the way wind passes through grass. Individual blades seem to move themselves, but it is the field moving as one. Then comes the body. Your spine lifts as if magnetized, and a subtle current travels the length of you, lighting vertebrae like lanterns on a pilgrim road. DNA appears as twin rivers crossing, an infinity sign in motion, and within its waters shimmer packets of instruction, light codes dormant until witnessed. When you give them your steady gaze, the packets open like seeds after rain, and sequences long archived under survival begin to transcribe a different biography, one in which coherence is your default and kindness is your strength training. You are shown the mathematics of mercy, not indulgence, mercy as precision. You see how forgiving a memory reassigns energy back to possibility, how releasing an identity frees angular momentum trapped in the story, how a single sincere breath can de-weaponize a room. The vision does not flatter you. It entrusts you. It shows you how reality is not impressed by grandeur but moved by exactness, how the smallest honest act at the correct moment outperforms the loudest gesture at the wrong one. Horizon arribis. On it, two cities flicker, one built of speed, glittering but brittle, the other built of rhythm, quiet but invincible. They coexist for now, occupying the same coordinates separated only by frequency. You feel the tremor of a phase transition approaching the inflection when water chooses steam, and you know that choice is being made through you, breath by calibrated breath. You are not a spectator on a hill. You are the hill changing shape. Listen to the vision as it whispers instructions into sensation. Widen your peripheral attention, soften the sternum, let the tongue rest, breathe low and slow, name nothing as threat until it proves itself. Remember, the room is listening to you. With each instruction, the torus brightens again, and your life's constellations shuffle, centering the path that gleams like a river at dusk. Finally, the scene condenses into a single image, your hand extended, palm open, a tiny sun hovering just above it, not hot, only alive. You recognize it as the generative core, the locus where intention becomes physics. The sun does not ask for worship. It asks for stewardship. It hums one sentence that threads everything together. What you hold with reverence will learn to hold you back. The brightness softens. The geometry remains like an afterimage you can summon by breathing. You are returned to the room, but the room is upgraded. Edges round, sounds clarify, colors confess their true names. The vision has not ended. It has localized. It waits for you to ask how this machinery works, not in metaphor but in method. Because reverence loves to be understood. You ask how the machinery works, and the field answers with clarity disguised as kindness. Begin with the simplest hinge. Where you place attention, energy densifies. What you stabilize with breath, reality rehearses until it becomes muscle memory. This is not philosophy. It is the observer effect, performing in real time. Your witnessing is not commentary. It is causation through selection. Out of the ocean of potentials, you keep inviting one shoreline to solidify because you keep meeting it with coherent gaze. Coherence is the signature. Think of your system as an orchestra, thoughts as strings, emotions as woodwinds, breath as percussion, posture as the velvet hall that contains the sound. When each section plays a different song, signal to noise suffers and the field cannot read a clear request. But when you tune a slow inhale down the spine, a relaxed jaw, shoulders soft, eyes widened, to include the periphery phase alignment increases. The waveforms of biology overlap like concentric lakes, and interference gives way to amplification. That amplification is what reality hears. Now map this to timelines. Imagine every possible version of your day as threads vibrating at slightly different frequencies. Timeline bifurcation is not cosmic drama. It is a sequence of microscopic votes. Each vote is a gesture. The second you choose curiosity over defense, the instant you forgive the thought before it recruits a narrative, the moment you name the room safe and let the body verify that truth through breath, rate, and heart variability. With each vote, you couple to a thread whose future is already stocked with matching events. In physics language, you bias probability distribution by constraining boundary conditions with coherent observation. In soul language, you choose the river that knows your name. Entanglement explains the rest. You are not a sovereign island radiating into emptiness. You are a luminous node in a living weave. Your choices inform more than your calendar. They alter context. When you stabilize a kinder frequency, systems entangled with you receive an update packet. Sometimes it arrives as a phone call that finally lands. Sometimes as the sudden willingness of a room full of co-workers to adopt a better practice. Sometimes as the relief in a child's eyes when they borrow your nervous system's calm without ever knowing the transaction occurred. You are always broadcasting. The only question is whether you are broadcasting on purpose. DNA is your local transmitter. Picture each helix as coiled antenna, both archive and instrument. It records the harmonics you rehearse most often and returns them as traits of experience, chance encounters, felt meanings, behaviors that seem like destiny until you change the song. Activation does not mean importing something foreign. It means removing interference so native codes can express. Lymphatic rivers clear at night. You sleep cleaner. Memory reconsolidates without alarm. The amygdala stops autographing every shadow. This is biology as liturgy. What about proof? Run experiments the way a physicist priest would. Repeatable, measurable, reverent. Before a conversation, establish a field. 3 breaths down and wide, a silent sentence of benevolence, a soft focus that includes the other person's whole body and the space around them. Notice how their cadence adjusts, how solutions appear that neither of you could reach from contraction. In traffic, soften the sternum and narrate the scene as a choreography, serving you. Then watch lanes open, improbably. With money, bless the numbers you do have for the functions they currently perform. Observe how new streams prefer to join already honored rivers. Keep a log. Coherence loves receipts. Skepticism is welcome. It prevents superstition from stealing the microphone. But aim it precisely. Skepticism should interrogate incoherence, not sabotage wonder. Ask, did I regulate breath? Did I choose posture? Did I widen attention before deciding? If not, your measurement apparatus was noisy. Your conclusion is uncalibrated. Return to the lab your body and repeat under cleaner conditions. The quantum field is not withholding, it is exquisitely literal. Language matters because it encodes boundary conditions. Calling something hard recruits muscular armor and narrows peripheral vision. Calling it precise invites focus without fear. Saying, I'm trying, instructs the field to keep you in rehearsal. Saying, I'm choosing, seats you in authorship. Swap fix for tune, force for invite, prove for experience. Over weeks, your lexicon rethreads your nervous system. Over months, your nervous system retunes your life. Understand also the economy of attention. Every fixation is a mortgage. Every release is liquidity. When you ruminate, you collateralize tomorrow's clarity to pay for yesterday's story. When you breathe like a cathedral and let the thought pass, you become solvent enough to fund a higher fidelity outcome. The universe is not rewarding virtue. It is following physics. Lower friction, higher flow. Finally, precision without tenderness curdles into performance. Tenderness without precision dissolves into sentiment. You are here to marry them. Let method hold the lantern while mercy chooses the road. Then creation ceases to be a project and becomes your resting metabolism. Inhale, receive instruction. Exhale, alter the world a fraction toward truth. This is how the machinery works. Not hidden, just subtle. Not complicated, just exact. Not distant, immediately local to breath, tongue, gaze, stance. Keep the orchestra tuned. Keep voting with gestures. Keep broadcasting on purpose. And watch how probability, like a loyal animal, begins to follow you home. You begin to notice that everything personal is also planetary, that your breath writes in cursive across the sky of human events. Each exhale a small weather system migrating outward through entanglement. The proof arrives sideways. You regulate your pulse before a difficult conversation, and an old family pattern generations deep hesitates, loses momentum, then tips toward kindness, as if history itself were relieved to unclench. This is the mirror at scale. Your coherence is not confined to skin. It is a broadcast tower disguised as a body. Look at the world through this lens and the news becomes diagnostic rather than destiny. The outrage cycles, the brittle certainty, the economies of fear, these are collective nervous systems attempting to become coherent while short on oxygen. When you widen attention and breathe low and slow, you are not escaping responsibility, you are supplying it. Your regulated presence becomes usable data in the morphic field. Others borrow it without knowing, and their choices subtly improve because your observer loop is stable enough to loan out balance. Civilizations are organisms. They pass through phase transitions the way water does, accumulating microheats of insight until a silent threshold flips and steam becomes the new normal. You are participating in that threshold by selecting higher fidelity meanings and refusing to feed lesser ones with panic. When you choose generosity over spectacle, you do not merely feel better. You alter the probability landscape. Timelines with gentler infrastructure gain mass. Events that required your fear to exist find themselves underfunded. The theater keeps playing, but the script receives edits overnight. Consider conflict. On the surface, it is noise. Underneath, it is information about mismatched rhythms, two drumbeats trying to lead the same march. You step in as a metronome, calm breath, soft jaw, widened eyes, and the room's tempo adjusts by a heartbeat or two, barely visible but measurable. Shoulders descend, voices round. The solutions that were hiding behind adrenaline walk into the light with their palms open. This is not charisma. It is physics applied lovingly. Coherence reduces friction, and lower friction means more intelligence can move through without burning. Your personal healing obeys the same choreography. When you forgive an incident, you are forgiving a frequency. That frequency had been recruiting scenes to sustain itself. You de-weaponize the charge and those scenes lose their casting director. Multiply this across millions and history revises itself from the inside out. The ancestor who could not finish their grief finds completion through your lungs. The future child inherits a quieter amygdala because you taught your body a better hymn. You call it DNA activation. The genome calls it finally receiving accurate instructions. See how culture evolves when enough people practice exact kindness. The market begins rewarding depth over harvest, craft over spectacle, repair over replacement. Art lengthens its breath. Education stops treating curiosity like a nuisance and trains attention as sacred technology. Medicine remembers the body is not a machine to bully, but a choir to tune. Law learns to prefer restoration over punishment because coherence is cheaper than cages. These are not fantasies, each already exists in pockets, prototypes of the higher timeline awaiting your investment of attention. You are not required to build everything. You are required to become a coherent node that makes building easier for those whose hands are on the materials. Think of yourself as a relay in a planetary nervous system. You sense where numbness blocks signal. You bring warmth there by noticing without accusation. You sense where rage boils because grief was refused. You make a small ceremony of listening and pressure vents without turning into ash. Your circle feels different after you leave, like a window opened in a crowded room. Let the mirror teach you humility. If a scene keeps repeating in your world, disrespect, scarcity, urgency, ask what you are rehearsing that invites it back. Replace self-blame with lab notes. Adjust one parameter at a time, language, posture, breath, The story you tell, the moment before action. Track results with tenderness. Share findings with anyone who asks. In this way, research becomes culture. Culture becomes climate. Climate becomes prophecy, fulfilled not by spectacle, but by thousands of precise, quiet choices. You will be tempted to measure your impact with applause. Resist. Measure it by the softness that returns to your tongue when you speak to those who fear you. Measure it by the clarity that visits when you decide slowly. Measure it by the synchronicities that cluster like migrating birds whenever you honor timing over hunger. These are signatures that the collective mirror is brightening because you keep polishing your side. Stand now in the middle of your ordinary life and feel the weave. Neighborhoods like constellations, institutions like weather, families like rivers braided through centuries. Whisper a sentence into the fabric. I am available for coherence. Then let your day arrange itself to meet that vow. You will notice that doors open where maps used to end, that allies appear carrying blueprints you didn't know you needed, that resistance stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher of better leverage. This is how humanity awakens, not by a single trumpet, but by millions of small bells ringing at the same clear pitch. You are one of those bells. Keep ringing, not louder, truer, and listen as the city changes key. You feel it before you name it. The air grows articulate, and the room listens harder than usual, as if an unseen audience leaned in from the edges of reality. The collective mirror brightens, then splits into two faithful reflections, both true to different vows. This is the bifurcation moment, not a catastrophe, a calibration. Choice ripens from theory into climate, and climate condenses into the next scene. On one side, velocity, a city of glare and noise where urgency is a flavor dissolved in everything. Conversations sprint, attention phrase. The nervous system wears its armor to bed. People are earnest but exhausted, spiritual but dehydrated, successful but unlanded, measuring life by surfaces that refuse to love them back. Probability there is fast and narrow, like water shoved through a straw. On the other side, rhythm, a city of pulse and pause where time keeps its original promise. Windows are open. Work is exact rather than loud. Listening is currency. People move like they remember. The choreography the planet prefers: inhale, then exhale, receive, then offer, ask, then answer. Probability is spacious, like a river curving with its own intelligence, erosion turned into sculpture. Both cities occupy the same coordinates, divided only by frequency. You stand on the seam. The seam does not ask for argument, it asks for fidelity. You will be invited to hurry across it by fear disguised as efficiency, and you will be invited to cross it in prayer disguised as posture. Your body is the bridge. Place your hand on the sternum. Let the weight remind the heart it has a companion. 3 slow breaths, down the spine, into the belly, into the legs, peripheral vision wide, tongue resting. Name the room safe so that biochemistry has permission to collaborate. This is how you vote. You will hear a chorus of old loyalties. The calendar that equated exhaustion with worth. The story that kept adrenaline as a pet. The identity that needed friction to feel real. They are not villains. They were scaffolds. Thank them out loud. Retire them like teachers whose course is complete. The higher timeline is not reached by revolt. It is reached by graduation, tassel turned with tenderness. Pay attention to the physics, announcing itself through your senses. In the velocity city, edges sharpen, faces flatten, colors glare, and synchronicity collapses into accident. In the rhythm city, edges round, faces gain depth, colors reveal quieter layers, and synchronicity clusters like meaningful weather. One field requires constant commentary to stay standing, the other holds itself. You are choosing which set of boundary conditions your nervous system will normalize and therefore broadcast. Remember, bifurcation is a sequence of small vows, not a single cinematic leap. You take it when you stop mid-text to remove the sentence that was really a plea. You take it when you refuse to punish yourself with a schedule that confuses drama for impact. You take it when you bless the money you do have, and the bank account becomes a conversation instead of a verdict. You take it when you ask your spine to lengthen before you answer the phone. Each small vow seats you in authorship, and authorship attracts compatible plot lines. There will be tests not from the universe punishing, but from momentum checking the integrity of your new signal. The offer that flatters but doesn't fit. The apology you crave that never arrives. The news cycle built to harvest your cortisol. Meet each with ceremonial ordinariness. A single breath is not naive. It is a technology. Regulation is rebellion at the molecular scale. When you regulate, interference declines, and the field can read you clearly enough to deliver reality at the resolution you have earned. Watch what happens as you hold the seam without flinching. Entanglement updates. People around you soften without understanding why. An argument loses its appetite. A deadline moves. A diagnosis finds a window you couldn't see from panic. These are not miracles against physics. They are physics under stewardship. Coherence reduces friction. Reduced friction frees intelligence. Freed intelligence behaves like grace. Do not be seduced into contempt for the velocity city. Compassion is the only passport that works at this border. You remember living there. You still visit. You can bring water, meaning, pacing, permission, but you cannot force anyone to drink. The law of this country is consent. Offer resonance. Withdraw, rescue. Keep your field clean enough that those ready to migrate can find you by feeling. If doubt prowls, give it work. Let it verify outcomes instead of vandalizing them. Keep a log of tiny bifurcations, the yes that tasted like oxygen, the no that returned 3 hours of life, the moment you chose to listen 3 seconds longer and an entire future got invited in. Nothing keeps a prophecy honest like data. Nothing keeps data generous like wonder. At the seam, one sentence becomes a compass. I choose precision over speed, rhythm over noise, truth over theater. Whisper it into your bones. Let the body translate it into gait, tone, glance, grip. The seam will respond, widening beneath your feet until it is no longer a line to balance on, but a living bridge carrying you across. And when you step onto the bridge, feel the shift, click into place, not dramatic, exact as if reality itself exhaled and said, finally, you're here. Now let us build a life that can breathe. You cross the living bridge by turning principles into posture, prophecy into protocol. Integration begins with a vow so small it can hide inside a breath. I will regulate before I relate. 3 counts in, 5 counts out. On the third exhale, the sternum softens, and the observer loop finds its seat. You are not performing calm. You are manufacturing signal. The quantum field reads that signal and translates it into easier doors. Build a morning that remembers you. Before screens, face east if you can. Place one palm over the heart and one over the navel to align upper meaning with lower momentum. Inhale as if gathering your scattered broadcasts back into center. Exhale as if instructing your day to harmonize around coherence. Whisper a single sentence into the fascia. I consent to the higher timeline. Feel microcurrents respond under skin, a hush like snowfall moving through the nerves. This is not mystical, it is mechanical tenderness. Practice the geometry of presence in ordinary rooms. At thresholds, pause for one breath, letting environments meet you, rather than bracing against them. In conversations, widen your peripheral vision until you can see both your words and their echoes in the other's shoulders, hands, pupils. This keeps you from collapsing reality to a single narrative. You become an aperture that admits more information, and with more information, compassion remembers how smart it is. Name your tools so the body trusts them. The anchor, feet heavy, crown light, jaw unlatched. The spine becomes a tuning fork. The halo, 2 inches of awareness around your head, releasing forehead tension so prefrontal clarity can come forward. The bowl, belly softened, pelvic floor like a low drum, giving decisions somewhere warm to land. Cycle through anchor, halo, bowl. Before emails, before money, before family, you will hear the tone of the timeline you are about to vote for. Choose accordingly. Your language is a frequency instrument. Replace I have to with I'm choosing to, and notice how agency lubricates the gears. Replace this is hard with this is precise, and watch the body swap armor for focus. Replace why is this happening to me with what is this training in me? and see how the room yields instruction instead of extracting adrenaline. Over weeks, these edits rewire your prediction machinery. Your amygdala starts trusting your cortex again, and peace returns without permission slips. Integrate through micro-rituals that look like kindness. Bless water before you drink. Touch the doorframe you pass most often, and let that touch carry a small prayer for all who enter after you. Tidy a square foot of space with reverence, and see how the entire room thank yous back by changing the way sound behaves. Place a hand on your throat before difficult truths and tell it quietly, "You are safe to carry honesty." Truth spoken from regulation lands like medicine rather than shrapnel. Keep a ledger of synchronicity not as superstition, as research. Date it. Note breath rate, posture, inner language used, the precise condition of your field when improbable kindness occurred. Patterns will emerge. You will learn your personal coefficients, the ratio of silence to action that yields best results, the hour of day your decisions carry the cleanest tone, the environments that amplify you versus the ones that ask you to fragment. Engineer your life to favor those coefficients, and resistance will stop masquerading as fate. When contraction arrives, and it will greet it with ceremonial ordinariness. Sit, name the sensation's edges. Ask what timeline the contraction serves. If it serves the velocity city, thank it and recenter. If it serves the rhythm city by insisting on a boundary, translate it into a request made at human speed. Integration does not mean permanent ease, it means reliable return. Your superpower is not invulnerability, it is recoverability measured in breaths rather than months. Invite the collective into your practice without evangelizing. Host a meeting that begins with 90 seconds of silence. Ask your team to choose one word to describe the signal they want to broadcast today. End by naming a single act of precision you will each take in the next hour. Watch productivity improve as friction declines and belonging rises. This is morphic resonance at work, a group nervous system learning to hum. Finally, craft an evening that hands you back to the night clean. Put the body in darkness for 10 minutes with all screens off so melatonin can speak. Gratitude as audit, not performance. What was more coherent at dusk than at dawn? Where did I spend attention generously? Where did I mortgage it? Forgive the day like a scientist closing the lab notes, honest, instruments powered down, tomorrow already invited to be wiser. Integration is not a sprint towards sainthood. It is a cadence that keeps remembering. You're not trying to become light. You are learning to get out of light's way so it can do its ancient job through you. Keep the vows small, the breaths exact, the posture kind. The prophecy prefers to live in hands like yours. You enter a room with no corners. Sound thins. Time loosens its belt. The field does not step closer. You remove what stood between you and what never left. This is the silence that is not absence, but architecture, a cathedral built from intervals. You do not hunt revelation here. You let listening finish becoming a place. Sit the way a mountain remembers sitting. Spine like a slow river frozen mid-fall. Tongue resting, jaw unlatched. Hands turned slightly upward, not as a signal, but as honesty. Your breath chooses a smaller vocabulary. 4 counts receive, 6 counts release. No ambition rides the inhale, no story rides the exhale. The observer loop dims its theater and becomes a lens. At first, the mind performs its old fireworks, lists, repairs, verdicts pretending to be thoughts. You do not wrestle, you widen. Each thought becomes a bird crossing a generous sky. No need to name the species, no need to trap the flight. Let weather pass. Below weather, climate. Below climate, earth. You keep descending toward the quiet that outlives content. Notice tiny sounds and let them be bells. The hum in the wall, the breath at your nostrils, a distant car drafting its own intention through the street. Each becomes proof of a world that continues whether or not you narrate it. You are not needed as a commentator here. You are wanted as a witness. Witnesses neither decorate nor deny. They allow. Allowing is not passivity. It is mastery without theater. A shimmer begins where your sternum meets breath. The soft utility of coherence assembling without command. The heart's field hums in meters, then in miles. You feel perimeter dissolve, the body remembered as shoreline rather than prison. Emotions approach with their original faces. Grief arrives without costume and is simply weight asking for floor. Joy arrives without glitter and is simply brightness asking for room. Neither demands a speech. Both receive a chair. Silence reveals the economy of attention. What you do not feed stops roaring. What you honor without grasping keeps offering. The nervous system recalibrates by borrowing the room's neutrality. Cortex reclaims its job from the hired muscle of the amygdala. You taste neutrality like clean water. You drink until the past stops salting the future. Bring to the center one unsolved knot, not the whole history, only the knot. Place it on the breath as if the breath were a small, warm animal that knows how to carry delicate burdens across rivers. Inhale, the knot receives oxygen and remembers it is made of rope, not fate. Exhale, the fibers loosen a fraction, millimeters of mercy, measurable only by a body willing to measure finely. No drama, only engineering at sacred scale. Let language fall under the horizon. Let images reduce to silhouettes. Let even intention take off its shoes. Here, you do not create, you consent. Consent is the highest form of authorship because it lets the truest sentence write itself through you. In this consent, the field arranges housekeeping, microglia clear debris, glymphatic rivers run, old adrenaline evaporates from fascia storerooms, the diaphragm reintroduces itself to the pelvis, the spine unbends by a whisper. If a prayer wants to exist, let it choose you. It will be short. It will fit inside one exhale, something like, I'm here, or keep me true, or let me be spacious enough for truth to move. Let the words dissolve back into the quiet as soon as they complete their circuit. Do not laminate what should remain breath. You become intimate with edges. The edge of inhale where stillness holds a thin light. The edge of exhale where surrender is not collapse but exact release. The edge of thought where naming would be theft. Stay with edges. Edges are thresholds. Thresholds are teachers. Teachers, when honored, retire themselves and leave you with a competence that requires fewer words than ever before. Silence begins to echo, and the echo is instruction. It tells you where your day leaks signal, the posture that begs, the sentence that bargains, the habit that wears urgency like perfume. It does not scold, it annotates. You receive the annotations as design notes. Subtract one meeting, add two pauses, change the first word you say in the morning. Let the evening end 15 minutes earlier so the night can be night again. In this chamber, prophecy grows roots, not because you strain to believe, but because you stop interrupting germination with commentary. Light codes you once chased arrive like ordinary weather and soak the soil. DNA listens without audience. Sequences long archived under survival try on gentler scripts and find they fit. You feel no fireworks, only rightness, the soft thud of a door that finally closes, level with its frame. Stay one breath longer than comfort suggests. Stay until the staying stops being a technique and becomes your native climate. When you rise, rise slowly, as if carrying a bowl filled to the rim. The room meets you with revised mathematics. Angles soften, colors confess. The next gesture announces itself without negotiation. You carry nothing out that you did not arrive with, except emptiness, and emptiness, in this tradition, is wealth. With it, you will purchase attention's finest instrument, clean choice. And with clean choice, the field can trust you with power that does not bruise. Stand at the threshold. Do not bless your life with words. Bless it with the quality of your quiet. Then step back into motion, not louder, clearer, as the silence continues doing its invisible work inside your gait, your glance, your smallest yes. You return from silence, carrying a bowl of empty sky, and the world leans toward you as if thirsty. This is the turning point where knowing stops asking for confirmation and begins behaving like gravity. You do not announce it, you allow it. The field tastes your coherence and replies with orchestration too exact to be coincidence, too gentle to be spectacle. Begin with the body as altar, feet ground, crown lifted, jaw unlatched. One breath as vow, receive on 4, release on 6. On the inhale, your observer loop seats itself like a sovereign returning without fanfare. On the exhale, reality accepts new boundary conditions, subtle and immediate. The air feels articulate. edges round, colors step forward with their true names. Activation is not a switch you flip, it is a frequency you inhabit until physics must agree. You speak less, and every word weighs more. Language becomes a vector rather than a net. I choose replaces I hope. Precise replaces hard. You watch the nervous system obey verbs like faithful soldiers receiving clean orders. In meetings, you carry silence like a tuning fork. Others borrow tone without knowing why. In conflict, you move first with breath, then with mercy, then with method. Mercy without method melts. Method without mercy bruises. You braid them and the room recalibrates. Entanglement updates. People you love begin to heal in ways their biographies said were unlikely. Not because you fixed them, but because the morphic field your coherence broadcasts is now a usable template, an exoskeleton of permission. The child sleeps through the night, the parent laughs and does not apologize for joy. The friend finally tells the truth and is not punished by the hour that follows. Your timeline brightens, and adjacent timelines notice the light. Observe how probability behaves when you treat attention as capital. You invest in the scenes that return clarity with interest. You divest from narratives that spend adrenaline and yield only ashes. Emails arrive carrying the very sentence you would have written to request what is offered. The invoice clears early. Traffic parts. The body heals a symptom that had memorized your name. These are not indulgences. They are readouts of reduced interference. Coherence lowers friction. Low friction frees intelligence. Freed intelligence moves like grace. Your DNA participates as transmitter and archive. During a quiet afternoon, you feel a soft heat rise along the spine. Lanterns lighting under the skin. Nothing dramatic, only exact. Light codes long stored as potential unzip and transcribe, protein by protein, posture by posture, choice by choice. You do not chase fireworks. You track recoverability, how many breaths it takes to return from contraction to clarity. The number shrinks. This is activation measured as engineering rather than myth. You begin practicing micro-consent with reality. Before a task, you ask, do we have agreement? The body answers in signal, not sentences, a widening behind the eyes, a loosening at the base of the skull, the belly becoming a bowl instead of a fist. If agreement is absent, you adjust. Timing, posture, language, pace. When agreement arrives, you proceed and watch how doors swing on well-oiled hinges. This is the choreography of the higher timeline. No push, only precise invitation. Notice the economy of miracles. They waste nothing. A stranger holds a door at the exact second your hands are full. A message arrives at 11:11, not for numerology points, but because the schedule of grace keeps time with mathematics you can feel. A memory that used to sting becomes neutral, then useful, then a portal where others find relief, because you kept it clean. You were taught to aim for spectacle. Activation teaches you to prefer fidelity. Spectacle consumes signal. Fidelity multiplies it. Temptation visits, to prove, to perform, to hurry the good, by advertising it. You decline, politely. You let outcomes speak in their native dialect, softness in people's faces, rightness in your pacing, work that lands without wobble. You keep a ledger not for ego, but for stewardship. Date, breath rate, posture, inner language, improbable ease. Data protects wonder from erosion and teaches wonder to scale. You also learn the ethics of power that does not bruise. You bless what you cannot fix. You step aside when your frequency would dominate a room that needs to find itself without your amplitude. You withdraw rescue and offer resonance. You learn to love boundaries the way engineers love tolerances, not as walls, as conditions that make precision possible. The prophecy stays gentle because you refuse to force it. And then, without ceremony, the sentence that once felt like a crown becomes your resting metabolism. You are not just witnessing the shift, you are generating it from within. The line stops being poetry and becomes pulse. You walk differently. Time treats you like a colleague. The field stops testing for coherence and starts building with it. Activation, finally, reveals its simplest face. You are the instruction you wanted to give the world. You breathe, and rooms remember how. You listen, and futures move closer. You choose, and reality recalibrates to match the integrity of that choice. No trumpets, no smoke, only accuracy, multiplied by kindness, traveling through your hands like light through clean glass. Hold here, feel the click of a phase transition complete. Let the bridge behind you dissolve and the ground beneath you thicken. What comes next is not louder, it is sealed. You stand where silence becomes instruction, and instruction becomes gate. The bowl you carried returns as a sun in your chest, not blazing, simply sure. You do not reach for it. You let it cast its natural light across the day you are about to enter. The field is not waiting to be convinced. It is waiting to be confirmed by your smallest, truest gesture. Listen to the finish of this transmission, the way a shore listens to tide, without demand, with trust in the rhythm that has always known the way. Your breath is the covenant. In on 4, out on 6. On the inhale, you receive a world that already loves precision. On the exhale, you release the world that needed panic to feel real. What remains is the narrow bridge that has become a road, and the road that has become a homeland. Take inventory, not of possessions, but of permissions. You are permitted to move at the speed of truth. You are permitted to speak from the regulated center that does not bruise. You are permitted to design conditions where love is not a performance but a physics. These permissions are not rewards. They are the native rights of a coherent being. Let the old loyalties bow and return to earth. The script that confused spectacle for power, the calendar that mistook self-erasure for service, the voice that borrowed fear's vocabulary to announce devotion. You thank each one for its season, and you graduate with tenderness. The tassel turns, the horizon aligns, the room agrees. Now the seal. You are not here to keep the light alive by force. You are here to remove what interrupts its lawful travel. You do this with posture, with language, with the humble choreography of a body in accord with its breath. You do this with boundaries that protect clarity without punishing confusion. You do this with the kind of attention that makes rooms remember themselves. If doubt returns, and sometimes it will let it sit at the table as a precise auditor, show it your ledger. Recoverability measured in breaths, synchronicities clustered like migrating birds, decisions that land without wobble. Let data preserve wonder, and let wonder keep data bright. Nothing loud is required, only fidelity. You will know the seal has set when time treats you like a colleague, when doors swing on hinges you did not oil, when your presence becomes a quieter gravity that gathers the right work and releases the rest without drama. The prophecy does not crown you, it naturalizes you. You become a citizen of the rhythm city, a steady metronome in the human choir, a relay that makes the signal stronger by passing it clean. Take one final breath inside this temple that has always been your own body. Place a hand over the sternum and whisper a sentence into the weave. Keep me exact and keep me kind. The field answers with the simplest affirmation space where you need it, strength where you feared it, softness where you forgot it was allowed. Step now, not louder, truer. Let the world meet the version of you that no longer negotiates with your own light. The seal holds, the road opens, and the statement you once heard as instruction becomes the way reality breathes through you. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.